Welcome back to Nothing But Football, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your love on the video last week. Really, really do appreciate the comments and love for it. And hope you are enjoying the new channel. If you're not subscribed, then please make sure you are. Nearly 10,000 viewers watched the last one on YouTube. So there should be 10,000 subs. That's how this works, all right? That's how it works. Well, joining me today, it's the classic trio. Henry Hill, Ben, Bowman, Hennes, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you. I saw a lot of people upset that we said David Raya was the best 28-year-old in the world over Joshua Kimmich. Deal with it.
We did also give I feel like we gave a decent shout out to Kimmich as well.
Yeah.
Ben, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks.
You were there to witness Chelsea batter Spurs at the famous Tottenham Hotspur ground.
Yeah. But I was also there to witness one of the goals of the century on Tuesday, Mickey van der Ven.
Century, wow.
Yeah, it was going to win the Puskas, surely, isn't it?
It was a very good goal. It was a very good goal.
Didn't see you getting a Champions League win last night?
No, look, Carabao away. Azerbaijan, tough away.
Even we beat them last year.
Give them respect. Put some respect on their name.
We beat them with 10 men last year.
They're a tough team. They generally played really, really well, by the way.
The big bad Chelsea, the mighty Chelsea, the world champions.
They're very good.
4 years, baby. There's that one guy that should have just squared. He should have squared it. He went for the shot. He went for glory for the Carabandits, and he should have squared it.
Name and headlights.
I will say, the Club World Cup emblem is embarrassing.
I saw you tweet about this. It's not our fault.
It's the fact it's been here for 4 years.
You won. Yeah, god damn it.
No shirt sponsor and just a gold blob on your shirt is.
Get your money up.
Get
your money up, mate.
I will never not find it funny that Bowley and co were like, the club doesn't make enough money, doesn't know how to make money, and yet they've not had a shirt sponsor. And the one thing they've had is Infinite Athlete, which no one to this day.
What is that?
No one to this day knows. What it is.
I will not comment on these matters. Onto the video, as the title suggests.
I'm going to keep bringing this up throughout the video.
We're going to be talking about how to fix your failing club, in which Chelsea doesn't appear, so we won't be bringing them up. We're going to go through a few clubs that are struggling at parts this season, who might have most recently had a win, but maybe in the league haven't been doing so well. And so we're going to go through, I think, about 6 or 7 clubs and chat about them. But let's kick things off with the mighty Reds, Liverpool, who got a win against Real Madrid most recently. Obviously, very, very, very good result for them, of course. Played really, really well. I actually thought Madrid were quite poor in ways, to be honest. Do look like very dysfunctional as a team. A lot of individuals in that team. Anyway, we're not talking about Madrid. We're talking about the winners of that game and Liverpool. And I guess it's more the last 6-7 games for them, isn't it, with Liverpool? They've kind of struggled in ways. We can talk about their attack, their kind of midfield, and even maybe that right-back position a little bit about Arne Slot. Because Henry Hill, what is the number one reason Liverpool have been struggling this season?
Well, I'm going to defence, I think, first and foremost. I think if you look at their attack in the league, they've got 18 goals. That's the same as Arsenal. It's only 2 behind City, who are the most. So it's not as if the attack isn't firing. I do think that Van Dijk was right to call out Rooney. I know that Rooney's got this BBC...
I didn't actually see this. What was said?
Rooney's got this BBC podcast, and basically, they're clearly just trying to get clicks, okay? Because every time he says anything on there, it's like a big headline on the BBC Sport website. Fair enough. They've paid him money. That's what they want from him. I think the result of that is...
What did Rooney actually say, though?
He said that he was really concerned with Van Dijk's body language. He didn't feel like Van Dijk... he was giving off all of the wrong impressions, maybe not trying hard enough. I think that's paraphrasing what he said.
That's a bit of a crazy thing to say.
Which is bonkers. Because if there's one person you can't really fault in this Liverpool back line this season, it's Van Dijk, in my opinion. I think... And you know what? He's allowed to have 1 or 2 bad games. He's class. I don't even need to go into it. I think I'm pleased that Van Dijk had the opportunity to stand there next to Rooney. And like Van Dijk,
that was funny.
I know that Wayne Rooney, a lot of people think he's the greatest Prem player ever, kind of thing. I know that he holds this biblical, iconic position within English football, and rightly so. Van Dijk has got every right to stand there and go, "Excuse me, I don't think you're watching our games properly." They had a blip, and maybe they haven't necessarily got out of it. I think to go and beat Real Madrid at home, 1-0, team top of La Liga, with arguably the most informed striker outside of Haaland, Kane in the world. Well done. That is a huge result. And let's be clear, it could have been way more than 1-0.
Yeah.
They absolutely battered them. It was Courtois in goal.
Yeah, Courtois was exceptional, wasn't he?
Well,
as he always is.
Shot world's best goalie.
Yeah.
They can't kick it. They can't kick. Honestly, I will kill the man that says Courtois is not. Anyway, the point is,
Their defence.
When you're looking at the defence, if Konate is having an off day, who can really slot into there at the moment? Conor Bradley had his best game this season by a mile.
Yeah. He has had poor games this season.
He's had poor games this year.
But he did. Real Madrid was one of his best.
He might have been his best game turns up against Real Madrid, doesn't it?
He was fantastic. I think Kirkes, obviously, has been such an issue, kind of getting used to that Liverpool system and Liverpool attack. Like, he's obviously being asked to do so much kind of going forward, but also asked, it kind of really shows how great a job Robertson did for so many years at Liverpool at doing it, defensively being so strong as well. And you're right about Konate. I think Konate is an exceptional footballer, exceptional defender, but this season he started slowly. He hasn't been at the form he was last season.
Nowhere near it.
And dropped off quite a bit. And if you look at their backup centre-backs, it doesn't leave you, even like a couple of years ago when they had the likes of Matip there, who was the young kid who would, Quansah, do a job every now and
again. Even Joe Gomez used to be slightly solid.
Who is still there, I guess.
The injury to Leone at the start of the season, I think, really did.
But
he's
a teenager. Like, there's a lot of pressure to put on a teenager.
He looked very promising in that game, didn't he? Was it against Southampton, I think, in the Cup? Yeah. I think a lot of it for me is about balance. Like, I was at the Spurs game on Tuesday, so I didn't watch the full Liverpool game, but from what I kind of saw, it made a massive difference kind of only having 2 of their new signings in the team and kind of just going a little bit more back to what we saw from them last year. Robertson coming in just restores a bit of balance, I think, in that back line. Kirkes, like you said, I think is still getting used to the system. Wirtz on that left-hand side looked a lot better. Ekitike has obviously, there's been no problem with him so far at all this season. It just feels like it felt a little bit more balanced. McAllister, I think a lot of it is also with Liverpool, and we spoke about this before, it's a kind of a personnel issue as much as Slot and the system, because McAllister has just not started the season anywhere near the level. He obviously had a baby, I think, in the summer, didn't he? Which that can make a difference, I think. And obviously he didn't really have a pre-season, so kind of treating like the first few games almost like pre-season. The last couple of games, he's been so much nearer the level. Szoboszlai has kind of carried that midfield alongside Gravenberch. Them two have kind of done a lot of the heavy lifting. Szoboszlai's been excellent, and I think now McAllister has kind of just got back into form and found his groove again. Everything just looks a lot better. It's made such a massive difference, and it'd be interesting to see what he does at the weekend, obviously against Man City, where he kind of still continues to trust this sort of same team. I think Isak being injured in a funny way has almost helped him a little bit to kind of like not go just back to
force him in and then put Wirtz into the midfield.
Feels a lot more balanced. Wirtz had his best game so far on Wednesday.
Yep.
I think with these big teams, you often, some of the power comes in knowing your starting 11 every single week. And the transfer decisions, continuity. The transfer decisions they've made has created a degree of tension within that squad, because you've suddenly got 2 centre forwards. Realistically, they play only with 1. So how do you work that into the system? When Wirtz wasn't playing well, Szoboszlai and Gakpo, who's I think is Mr. Consistent. Szoboszlai and Gakpo often turn up for Liverpool week in and week out. And then it's sort of like, well, there's the tension there of, well, who do you drop to make sure that Wirtz gets some game time? And then there's the tension of Wirtz not getting the goals and assists that actually I think his performances do deserve this season. Then you got Salah not necessarily performing to the level, and then being a bit... I don't know if it's true about him removing Liverpool from his bios and stuff like that. Just little moments of tension. I think once Slot is just a bit more ruthless and settles on a starting 11 that he knows is going to deliver for him week in, week out, then I think we'll see a return to the imperious form. I think you almost have to forget the money that they spent on players, perhaps some of the promises and expectations that some of these players have been given, because Liverpool's too big to kind of be mudded by that issue right now. Once they establish that starting 11, I think we're going to see a very promising Liverpool once again.
Obviously, you said the City game this weekend is going to be very, very interesting for them. All it takes is an Erling Haaland masterclass yet again to put questions
Phil
back.
Foden.
Phil Foden was obviously brilliant.
This whole idea that he should suddenly be picked for England again, I think it's mental.
Why?
Because, what position? Where would you play him?
I'd quite like to see Foden.
Don't say the left.
No, I wouldn't mind seeing him in the pivot next to Rice. Like all this Wharton Anderson conversation, I'd like to see that for sure. But I think you could have a nice midfield with Foden dropping deeper for Man City in the way that he is, getting lots of touches, playing through the lines.
Do you not think
Bellingham in the 10, but then they can sort of
Foden is
almost the new football manager.
Foden has almost never turned up for England.
But doesn't mean he'll never. Doesn't mean he never will.
Yeah, but I don't look at the last 2 international camps and think, you know what, this team is missing.
Phil Foden.
Like I think sometimes you just got to accept that maybe you're not part of the current rotation of the team. I just think there's this, because he plays for City, there's this divine reason that he should be.
He's playing very well though.
Yeah, he's playing very well. But I mean, so's Morgan Rogers. So's Jude Bellingham, frankly. He's come back from injury and looked pretty sharp for Real Madrid. There are loads of players who are playing well. I don't want to be in this position where we're shoehorning Foden into the team again. Just because, can you say?
I think during this period, during this period is like a nice that already qualified. Now's the time to try a thing.
I actually think in a midfield three, I think it could work quite nicely. Foden a little bit deeper.
If Foden got called up for this international break, I wouldn't be like,
if it's like him being picked over
11 goal contributions.
If it's him being picked over Loftus-Cheek, I'd understand it. Do you know what I mean? But this idea that suddenly Foden's firmly in a starting 11.
I just wouldn't mind seeing it. I love Foden as a footballer, so I just wouldn't mind seeing it.
I don't mind it. Anyway, it's a completely different topic to what we were
it's all
saying.
Good stuff, really, isn't it?
It's all great, all good stuff. And look, Liverpool. Maybe this is eternal form after this Real Madrid result. Obviously, they've got Man City on the weekend. As I said, they are 7 points off of Arsenal, who are in first place, which is kind of mad to say after just. I guess they started the season well and having so many last-minute winners that kind of kept them.
They were
so
5
far.
points clear at one point.
They were, but then obviously the whole reign happened. They've got City, Forest, PSV, West Ham, and Sunderland in their next 5 fixtures. I think it does feel like, as you said, Henry, Slot maybe has turned a corner and understands a little bit more with his squad. Maybe it is slightly upsetting someone, like you said, Ben, kind of not necessarily fortunately, but maybe it works a little bit easier with Isak out at the moment. I do still think the right back is a slight issue. Yes, Conor Bradley had a great game against Real Madrid. Let's see that continue. I think it's easy to comment on him maybe in 3 more games' time once he has this kind of consistent run of form. Obviously, Frimpong is just out injured again at the moment. He feels like that transfer has been a bit of a weird one.
The thing with Conor Bradley is I don't personally, and I could be completely wrong, I don't see him hitting the levels of Trent. I don't see that kind of player there. He's an honest player.
They don't need someone to hit the level of Trent at right back. They just need someone decent. Essentially, I think Conor Bradley can easily be fulfilling that role.
But I don't think any other team. City, I get with Nunes because that's just weird. But Arsenal, I think there's a reason why the teams that tend to be topping leagues across Europe have elite fullbacks at this point.
For sure. But do you not think, for instance, Kirkez's form at Bournemouth, that was the level people could think he could reach to? Obviously, we've not seen that at Liverpool so far. I'm not saying that we will see that at Liverpool, but him on that left flank could potentially be one of those elite fullbacks if he does end up developing there. Again, at the moment, for what we've seen, not quite there. But I also do think Bradley has had times where he's looked very good and could reach that kind of level. He is super young still.
Also, with Kirkez, it could also be a little bit of once they start to get more control in the team generally, once McAllister does continue to get back to the level that we saw last season, I think he's kind of got there over the last couple of games. The more control they have in games and not give the ball away as much, you can afford for Kirkez to kind of be bombing on in the way that he does and kind of hold that width on that left-hand side.
It also takes an adaptation period. Do you remember obviously when Cucurella joined Chelsea and he was called one of the worst signings of all time, basically. So obviously it was still such an expensive fee on 60 million odd for him. Now people will sit here and say he's one of the best left-backs in the league. It can take the jump up from a team like Brighton, like Bournemouth, to a team like Liverpool where you are up against different kinds of blocks. You're up against different kind of oppositions. The expectation is for you to be attacking and giving a goal output and contributing towards the team in an attacking sense. There's a lot more pressure on someone to do that, and a lot more I think you should be able to give them time to adapt to this and get to that level. And look, I'm not saying Kirkez will, I'm not saying he won't, but I do think we should give him more time than just absolutely slating him and saying it will never happen. And I'm not saying that we're saying that either right now. But yes, Liverpool, I feel like we think maybe slightly on the rise. Again, even once Isak is back from fitness, Salah might end up going to the AFCON, so they'll still be able to kind of feature everyone.
They're third in the league. They're in the qualifying automatic qualification positions for the Champions League, and yet people think they've had an absolute disaster so far. I don't think it's too bad.
I mean, losing 6 games in 7.
They kind of have, though, in the last 6 games.
Yeah,
they kind of have.
Well, they were getting away with it at the start.
They were.
Yeah, you know what? Fair enough.
Okay, there we have it with Liverpool. Over to Nottingham Forest. They recently drew 2-2 under Sean Dyche playing against Manchester United. They started the season, obviously, with Nuno Espirito Santo. He's over to West Ham. We'll chat about them a little bit later. They then went to Ange Postecoglou. They now have Sean Dyche at the helm. Managed them for 3 games now, playing in the Europa League tonight. So we'll be interested to see how that goes down. He switched them now to a back 4 that I think maybe we're possibly used to seeing Forest kind of occupy or use. He's had the same lineup 3 times in a row now, so seeing a bit more consistency in that side. Jesus is up top with Woods out injured at the moment. Luiz obviously was playing in that kind of pivot role, though he is just got injured, so we'll be interested to see who comes in for him. What do we make of this Forest side? How can this turn of form happen for them? Or is there maybe an expectation for Forest with them playing in Europe, with them having played so many games, that maybe there isn't a top 8 finish this season?
I can't see that, but I do think this is the best squad that Sean Dyche will have ever worked with.
Yeah.
They're certainly the best first 11. That midfield 3 that he's been playing of Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson and Douglas Luiz, that is a top half of that's a European midfield, like level midfield. It's going to be difficult for them to balance Europe, but to be fair to him, in the first couple of home games, he's beaten Porto and then got a draw against United coming from behind.
And actually kind of unlucky. They could have even nicked it as well.
Yeah, I know United had one cleared off the line as well, didn't they, obviously? But that he's made a decent start. Bournemouth away, it's difficult, especially off the back of a European game. They've got Europe again tonight. I'm not sure who they've got at the weekend. So like I said, it's going to be difficult to balance that for him. But he's got good options. And I do like the fact that he's picked the same starting 11 3 times in a row. His hand will obviously be forced. You don't want to run those, with the Luiz injury, you don't want to run those players into the ground, obviously. But he has got a decent amount of options to pick from. Obviously, Ange was kind of chopping and changing every single week. Nuno kind of the same, a bit of disgruntlement about the signings and all that kind of stuff. It just feels like Dyche is going to pick now, I know it sounds obvious, but like pick the best players for that position, not really overcomplicate it. And that Forest squad doesn't necessarily need to be overcomplicated. They've got a good amount of talent, especially for the way that he'll want to play, kind of soak up pressure, absorb it, and hit teams on the break. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they're not going to peel away from the relegation zone and get top half. But
the reason they got rid of Nuno originally was because they wanted to play an attractive style of football, supposedly. They wanted to kind of go to that next level of being a consistent European placing team. Do you think with Sean Dyche managing Henry, that is actually possible?
Well, no, I think
or have they kind of gone backwards in their thinking after hiring him?
I think the hiring of Sean Dyche is almost a middle finger to Edu, sort of going, my understanding would be that a lot of his signings were there to try and elevate the style of play, because if you look at let's take Adama Traore as the case study here. Nuno really wanted to sign Adama Traore. If you've been brought in to try and elevate the squad in an attacking flowing way, you're probably looking at Adama Traore and thinking, no, he is what he is. Do you know what I mean? I like him, but he's not necessarily a signing on paper that takes your team to the next level.
Definitely.
He's a functional player, speed, power, whatever. And that's kind of the discrepancy between what Eddie wanted and what Nuno wanted. I think going back to Sean Dyche, recognising the success of last season under a more defensive style of football, they've got to dig their heels in, let's face it, at the moment. And it's not as if they were just bad this season. They were bad for most of the back end of last term. They've been
February onwards.
They were.
So I think Ben's spot on, just going back to basics almost with this squad, bringing players like Neco Williams, who you know is going to play
7 out of 10 every week.
7 out of 10 play for the shirt. There is an art to bringing new signings. If you look at Sunderland, it looks like Regis Labrie and the whole team were firmly on the same page about what positions needed upgrading, where they needed to double up, and where they really needed to truly strength. Whereas with Nottingham Forest this summer, I know they sold a few players as well, but it just felt like they kind of just almost any Brazilian player that were getting offered, it
was a bit scattergun, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so my only concern is
did Textor end up joining the Forest regime slightly?
Textor? I don't think so. I thought he was shopping around for Sheffield Wednesday, isn't he?
Well, he was part of the Botafogo thing, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and that's where the players allegedly all.
So if you look at the starting 11 from against United, Savona, he's new at right back.
He come from Juventus.
Well, obviously Ola Reiner had that bad injury, which has kept him out now for a while.
And then Ndoye, who actually has been a pretty good new signing so far, and then Jesus up front. Whereas the rest of it is pretty similar. I do worry about goals, because obviously Chris Wood started slipping off of his goal scoring last season. And then I think he's only got 2 or 3 this term, including the brace on the first day. Yeah. Igor Jesus is not a big goals man. He's not a big goal. He didn't arrive from Botafogo with a huge goal record. He was more just sort of an everyman, an old-fashioned striker, let's say. So I do worry about goals, certainly under Sean Dyche's team. But he did show...
He's still there, isn't he?
What I will say, though, in Sean Dyche's defence, at Everton. I know I got rightly kind of slammed for suggesting they shouldn't have sacked him for David Moyes. However,
well, we'll talk about Everton a bit.
Everton's like XG under Sean Dyche was always way higher than what they're actually delivering. He does actually create teams that can create chances.
Yeah.
So you just got to remain and see. I just think they just need to get back to a functional style of football and really trying to hone in on what made them successful in the first place under Nuno, who I think will probably repeat that trick again at West Ham.
Yeah, I think so. I think, players like Gibbs-White maybe chipping in with a few more goals. He got a brace against Porto, but they were both from the penalty spot. He's not looked quite himself this season. Hopefully for them, he can kind of get back to that level. Obviously, they're missing a goal threat in Alanga, but I do think, who's obviously left, I think Ndoye can kind of replace that. I think they'll be fine for us. I think it's going to be difficult for them to push for anything higher than top half, really, with Europe. But things can change quickly. What are they in the league? They're 19th at the moment.
Yeah.
But things can change very quickly. The only worry is, who have they got at the weekend?
They have
Sturm Graz tonight and then Leeds. Leeds is that has kind of become a bit of a six-pointer.
Because Leeds might be down there, but Leeds feel more united as a team.
They do.
Leeds, like, there's no panic station at Leeds.
They have to play so much European football.
Yeah.
Forest have a squad that can go far in the Europa League. I'm not saying they're going to end up winning it, but they can definitely kind of be touching the quarters possibly. But in order to do that, you play so many games. You can end up playing so many games and have to travel so far for some of these away days as well.
Forest's problem again is Leeds will have that. Leeds will have that circled now.
Already.
Yeah. All these bottom teams will go there being like, we need to get something from this.
Yeah.
And I think whereas I think last year when they were in their hot streak, I think people were like, oh God, this actually might be a lot harder than we were expecting.
When you had to go away last season to play Wolves, that was never a fun fixture. Obviously it wasn't a fun fixture.
City Ground's good.
But the City Ground is it's a fantastic stadium and the atmosphere that they managed to build last season was really, really impressive. And that's kind of, especially under Ange, was disappearing quite quickly.
Yeah, he lost the kind of relationship the fans didn't need.
Massively. But maybe Sean Dyche is the guy. I can see Forest fans after a couple of positive results on Sean Dyche kind of getting behind him. They almost kind of have to.
Well, he is a Forest. He has got ties to Forest, hasn't he?
And
also the backroom staff as well.
Have all been part of it.
Really? More credit in the bank.
Everybody there in the coaching staff has been at Forest.
Can't remember.
I do wonder how much people actually care about whether or not the manager once played for the club.
Definitely. But I just think it helps, with how bad it was.
Buys you a
bit
more time
at the end.
I think a little bit.
Was definitely not going well. Moving on to the 20th place team in the league, Wolverhampton Wanderers. They've had some start to the season. They're the only team in the league to not win a game. Obviously, they've sacked Vitor Pereira. That was up 45 days after giving him a new contract, which is just absolutely baffling, to be quite honest. In fact, any club right now to have ever played in the Premier League after 10 Premier League games to have been on 2 points or less has never beaten the drop. And Wolves are fitting in that category at the moment. Go on, Henry.
If they stay up, this is a miracle.
Yeah, I'll be amazed.
I've got to give it to Ben. He was spot on at the start of the season with his predictions. Yeah. I got very much swept up in the idea that Andre and Joe Gomez in midfield was going to save them. João Gomez.
Yeah, but that was also a valid opinion.
And then Vitor Pereira in the last game benched them both.
Yeah, it's mental.
I can't express... This is going to sound so Brexit-y, okay? And I'm sorry. No, never a good start to a sentence.
Never a good start.
It's a selection of players. It's just I don't see who in this team, other than maybe Matt Doherty, okay? And Strand Larsen's been good, but he hasn't scored in a while. I don't see who in this team who's going to die for that shirt. Do you know what I mean? Who's going to really dig it out? I think they've just... Whether it's the Mendes signings that they bring in, whether it's their kind of weird outside transfer strategy, but...
Well, even Mendes is his whole time with Forest is kind of coming to an end at the moment.
With Wolves?
Yeah, Wolves. Sorry, Wolves, not Forest. There's been a big issue with the ownership over the last few years. Their investment has kind of been reducing. We've seen, funnily enough, obviously there's been a few clubs in the Midlands that have been owned by Chinese ownership. And they've never really had a successful time there. West Brom definitely had a really awful time when they were owned by... I think it was hundreds or even thousands of Chinese in the end. It was like a conglomerate, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, the state there was plans about the stadium improving. That's been shelved. They've raised ticket prices. There's been a lot of issues with the ownership. And then in the summer, the ownership in trusting with Vitor Pereira gave him kind of the helm of the transfer strategy because of how well January went for them. Obviously, when they brought in those couple of defenders and had a real boost off of the January transfer market, they then this summer gave him kind of the helm and the strings for the transfers. Yeah. But then even with his suggestions, they didn't get the first choice or second choice suggestions. It still ended up being the fourth or fifth choices.
It's they've got two guys called Bueno in the back line. It's not good.
It's only two.
Well,
but when Nelson Semedo left in the summer, Cunha obviously goes through a good transfer fee. Yeah. Even they probably could have got more from Ryan Aït-Nouri.
I was surprised Aït-Nouri only went for 40 million, wasn't it?
They haven't really spent that money, but well, at least as well. Like if you look at that squad, they spent about 100 million in the summer in total, but obviously some of that was to bring in Strad Larsen, that was on loan season before.
No brainer.
Like it's definitely no brainer, but he's not necessarily started the season brilliantly either. He's had a bit of an injury.
I don't know where the service is coming from.
Fair Lopez, he's meant to be hugely exciting. 117 minutes this season. Yeah. John Arias, who they got in from Fluminense, everyone was all very excited about that.
Not gone.
It's a 28-year-old arriving from Brazil for the first time. If you're that good in Brazil,
you would have gone already.
You'd have gone already. Is my point on that one, and it's a tough ask at this point just to come in and do something. Hwang Hee-chan is still one of the most consistent starters, and he's very much a purple patch player. We'll pop up with a couple of. I actually like Hwang. I think he's an all right footballer, but
you can't be relying on him.
Is this forward line? Is this team good enough? When we're talking about identity and what we said about Leeds, what about having an established style of play and what they're going to do? I don't see that at all with Wolves. Their goalkeeper, they're still flip-flopping between Jose Sarr and Sam Johnston. God. That's never a good sign. No. You just want a starting goalkeeper.
Jose Sarr had a period in the Premier League where he was, or a season in the Premier League where he's very good. And it's never quite worked out from that. They're the team in the Premier League who have made the most changes to their starting lineup. They
not good.
That's not good. 31 changes in the first 10 games of the season. They've also changed formation. Listen to this. They went from Vitor Pereira's 3-4-2-1, his preferred system, to a 4-3-3, then changed to a 3-5-2, and then in his final game, he obviously lost 3-0 to Fulham with all those changes.
So they've 6 players have scored this season, 1 goal each. 3 of those are defenders, and 1 of those is a defensive midfielder. It's just... That's warning signs.
Strand Larsen hasn't really started the season because he was very, very obviously a lot of plaudits went to Cunha last season, and Larsen did get his praise as well. But Larsen was very, very good up top for them.
He was injured.
He worked so well. He was injured at the start of the season. But you look at that starting lineup now, and it is really worrying. And if we got to talk about the guys that are coming in. The new manager that could be at the helm. Obviously, Gary O'Neill was being linked to him back to Wolves. Wolves fans were not happy with that. And then we've seen him kind of withdrawn himself from the process. Some of the names that are also being mentioned, Erik ten Hag, who obviously got sacked by Bayer Leverkusen after a couple of games at the start of this season. Michael Carrick has been linked with them as well.
I saw Rob Edwards.
Rob Edwards has been linked with them after
he's been at Borough for 5 minutes, hasn't he? Really?
Why would you sacrifice a genuine title promotion charge with Middlesbrough
not a chance.
To go to a team where you're almost guaranteed to get relegated,
and you're not going to be backed, really, are you?
The only way you could accept this Wolves job is if there's a guarantee that if you get relegated, you're allowed to stay on for another season. Because Gary O'Neill, if he'd taken this job and just got relegated again, I don't think he's ever got relegated, but whatever. The point being, if they just went down under Gary O'Neill, then what's that going to do to his Premier League credentials?
Yeah, he's never getting another job, is he?
I actually thought O'Neill did a pretty good job.
He did.
He managed a difficult situation.
At Bournemouth, he did really well. At Wolves, he did well. I know Wolves fans really don't look back on his time fondly.
That's so silly because the height of the Nuno days, have gone. And this weird transfer policy that it relies on them digging out a star from time to time. They got that with Cunha, Aït-Nouri, there was someone that they almost semi-developed into a great player.
They did. Yeah, they definitely did.
And they chose not to sell Strand Larsen for £60 million this summer. They're never going to get that money for him again. The point is...
I don't know, maybe.
Well, if he ends the season on less than 10 goals...
Not
60 million.
Not this summer.
They could be in the Championship.
The point is, their whole strategy has been relying on unearthing a few gems, and I think the mine is dry, frankly, with this current side.
Well, other managers that are available at the moment: Motta, Tudor, Ange Postecoglou, Marco Rosa, Terzic, Hutter, Pioli, Hassan Hutter.
I'm not being funny, Zach. I'm sorry, I'm in a real ranty mood today. about 90% of those names are way better than Wolves, okay? Hassan Hutel is the only one who might fancy it, just to be back in the Premier League. Yeah. But Igor Tudor to go from Juventus to being at the bottom team in the Premier League, come on. He just needs to sit in Italy and wait for 5 minutes.
Yeah, he doesn't have to wait 5 minutes.
He'll be managing Torino tomorrow.
Yeah, very, very cheap.
And isn't taking it either, is he? He took himself out of running for the Celtic
just needs
job.
to take time.
Take a break.
To have a little break. No, the point being, though, I just wanted to name some decent names out there who could possibly be looking to make a move. Obviously, Michael Carrick did do a decent job at Middlesbrough, especially at the start of his time there. Yeah. In the end, obviously, it didn't end fantastically for them. But could be somebody to take over. Like, do you think if you're Wolves, like as a fan, how do you feel about being linked to Erik ten Hag? Like, that's
Ten Hag, as much as he obviously disappointed in the end at Man United and the way that kind of fell apart, he's a better manager than Wolves.
Yeah.
Like, he got the Bayer Leverkusen job and was probably quite unlucky to be sacked from it, really, with the turbulent summer that they did have. What was it, 2 games in he got sacked? Like, I know Ten Hag's reputation couldn't be lower than it is right now, but he's still... I don't think they should turn their nose up at him. I think he could do a... I don't think he would go there.
You're not saying that he will turn his nose up to them.
Right.
I think he probably will.
Look at Ajax. Look at Ajax having a stinker in the Champions League. If they sack their manager, which I can fully see them doing at some point, if you're Ten Hag, would you rather go back to the team which you got to the semi-final of the Champions League and frankly should have got to the final? Or are you going to go to Wolves and get relegated?
For sure.
Yeah, he's not going to Wolves.
But who are we sending to Wolverhampton Wanderers?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, they're quite unlucky.
But they've got a midfield. Like, I agree. I still think they've got a midfield that is capable of doing
Brendan
Rodgers.
There you go.
Arguably, like, if Dyche didn't go to Forest, then
defo. Yeah,
they could have got him.
Yeah, 100%,
maybe
100%.
2 points. There's an 8-point gap on Burnley.
How's one of them Tottenham?
It's actually,
yeah.
Oh dear. I just think this has been a illness that's been creeping up on Wolves for a while.
Yeah, you flirt. It always happens, doesn't it? You flirt with relegation, and then it will bite you, I think. And they've just had enough individual quality to kind of bail them out of it at times. And like I said at the start of the season, I think Pereira did a really good job when they didn't have Cunha for that kind of 4 or 5 game spell where he got banned, and they kind of really rallied together, and he got so much out of that team. I just think doing it over the course of a season, and I think those Wolves players, especially like if you're one of the experienced players that is there going every window after every window, kind of signing these potential prospects, not really improving the team. They've always got financial problems. It's like mentally it kind of does weigh on you. And the supporters, I think they've kind of come to the end of their tether. Like, look at the amount of arguments that the supporters have had with the managers and the players now. It's just like, I think there's such a sense of frustration. They've shown some signs in some games where they can get back into it. Like Chelsea in the Cup, they gave that a good go. They showed a good
they did,
bit of fight. It's like,
a couple of long throws.
It's so frustrating.
They've conceded more goals than anyone. If we were talking about it like a quick fix, they've conceded more goals than anyone in the league right now. They just need to get as solid as possible. They just need to.
But what's funny is they kind of had this issue exactly the same time last season. And then they brought in Vitor Pereira. Vitor Pereira then in January managed to bring in some good defensive signings, and they managed to shore up at the back a little bit.
Agbadou, he's not. Is it Agbadou the centre?
There's a few of them.
He's been nowhere near the level this season.
Totti Gomez, he was really good last year as well.
They've not been as consistent at all. Well, there you have it, Wolves. Shore up at the back and hire a manager that actually wants you, apparently.
I feel sorry for their fans.
Supposedly, Erik ten Hag actually could be going there. So
I just honestly
can't
think
say that.
If I was his agent,
no.
Hold out.
Red flag.
Hold out.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Over to Newcastle United, currently 13th in the table. 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. Beat Athletic Bilbao in the Champions League last night.
What a header.
But they have lost to West Ham, Brighton, Arsenal and Liverpool. I think they've actually had quite a tough run in for their first 10 games, to be honest. They obviously are playing in Europe quite regularly with the Champions League, up against high-quality opposition. Had a very good game against Barcelona. They're 3 points off 10th. What do we make of their start to the season? Because it's been a bit of a weird one, hasn't it? Like, Voltemade has been very successful up top, like a really good replacement for them. But they are quite low in the table.
Yeah, it feels like Voltemade is kind of their only real source of creativity. This was why I was a little bit confused by the transfer business in the summer, and I feel like Eddie Howe kind of maybe needs to... I feel like he kind of needs to take a little bit of a step to be a little bit more brave. I feel like a lot of Newcastle fans have now started to question Joel Linton's place in the team. I know he scored last night. It was a good header and a good performance from him. To be fair, in games like that, was a little bit more open in the Champions League. He can be effective, but I think in the league for with the stature that Newcastle are at now and the quality that they've got on the ball, a lot of teams are going to sit back against them. And I just feel like not signing that kind of creative midfielder in midfield, especially when you've got Guimaraes and Tonali who hoover the ball up so well, but they're also excellent in terms of their passing range and breaking lines. They can be feeding those cute little balls into the pockets where you can get a number 10 or Voltemada, maybe you get a number 10 that can kind of run in beyond the striker a little bit more, but someone that you want in and around that penalty area rather than Joelinton. I still don't think Jacob Ramsey is necessarily the answer, but I think he's a better fit than Joelinton. I feel like they've just kind of moved past him a little bit, and I feel like that's what I've seen a lot of Newcastle fans speaking about this season. I don't really know what's going on with Lewis Hall either, because he doesn't seem to be injured, but he's not playing a lot, and I feel like he could give them a little bit more from an attacking point of view as well. He likes Dan Burn. Dan Burn obviously scored an amazing header last night. But in the league, like, they are going to be coming up against a lot more teams. Like West Ham got back in the game. Remember, Newcastle took the lead. They kind of took the initiative. They allowed West Ham back into it. And as soon as West Ham kind of go in front through that own goal, they couldn't break them down at all. They didn't lay out a glove really on West Ham in that second half. And I think that's kind of encapsulated the issues that Newcastle have been having for a while. And it's why in the summer I couldn't really get my head around that they either didn't sign a winger that could maybe be a bit more versatile and play inside, or sign a kind of classic number 10 on top of Elanga, because I think Elanga is a good squad piece, but he's not delivered anything really so far. Anthony Gordon is way out of form. I think he got injured again last night as well, which won't help. Obviously, Jacob Murphy's still been good, but they can't necessarily rely on these players kind of overperforming. I just feel like in midfield is their biggest strength, but it's also the balance of it is their biggest issue, I think, right now.
We have mentioned that 10 position, or just like a different creative outlet for them quite consistently now for about what feels like at least a year and a half.
Yeah.
And somebody they could have looked at. I remember obviously before him going to Spurs, we were kind of shipping Simmons there as well, possibly.
And also Kudus, like someone like Kudus a bit more.
We said Kudus definitely a few times. We said Madueke as well, was he?
Honestly,
he's at Arsenal.
Looking at this current squad, if you had to change it tomorrow, I'd almost be tempted to put Murphy there. He's the one.
What, in the 10?
Yeah, just try him out. He's one that's the creative.
Get shots off, he beats players, he's
quite an interesting player, Murphy. There's a reason he keeps getting picked for this team. Even like Elanga, I was never that impressed by that transfer anyway. I just think it's tricky. I completely agree with Ben. I think they're just missing. None of their players have got more than one assists this year, and like Murphy did have an unbelievable hot streak last year where he was creating chances for players around him. But at the moment, they've got Voltemada, a guy who can score goals. They've got some pretty fun wingers in there. They just need that creative outlet just to unlock some defences. But it's still one loss in the last 5, I think. It's not.
They have kind of turned it around a little bit, haven't they?
And that it's just that West Ham loss is such a freak one. Like if they win that.
But the next few games, they're playing Brentford away, which isn't easy at the moment. I think Keith Andrews is doing such a stellar job at making Brentford a really difficult team.
They've got exactly the same amount of points at this stage this season than last season, Brentford.
That's really impressive. That's really impressive. Like he's genuinely doing a stellar job, considering how many people thought Brentford would go down. I think us included, or some of us included. They then play Man City after the international break. They've got to go away to Marseille, play Everton away, and then play Newcastle at home in their next 5. Play Newcastle at home. Play Spurs at home.
Oh, they'll win that
in their next 5 games. But you can still see them being kind of up and down results, isn't it? Like if they had a draw to Brentford this weekend, would you be that shocked about how it?
If you told me that's not a bad result,
it's not a bad result, but maybe that's probably more credit to Brentford than necessarily like criticism
should be
to
going
Newcastle.
there trying to win the game. I think it could be a bit like Villa, where we all kind of fell into the trap of going, it's gone a bit stale, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it does just kind of come back.
But do you not remember when, for instance, when Newcastle were last in the Champions League, it did have an impact on their Premier League.
But they've not had loads of injuries. Maybe it's just the intensity that they play with, because I feel like they are
they're a physical
team.
First team. Oh my God, they're
team.
such an intense team. And to then expect these same players to keep doing that throughout the season. And God, I wonder by February how they're going to be going from there. And maybe they are managing to recover really well. But it's not like they can go into Brentford and go, okay, we're going to rest Bruno Guimaraes, we're going to rest Tonali.
I think it'll be interesting.
They have to be playing.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see on the creativity front what happens when Wissa comes back. Because you could see them maybe sacrificing a midfielder and going almost 4-4-2, and Voltemada kind of playing as the 10
behind him,
because his Voltemada's link play is kind of what you want from a number 10. Really, he's for a tall guy. He's not. I know he's scored a few headers and that, but that's not his game. He wants it on the deck, and Visso is good at making those runs. In behind, you can go direct to Visso and play off him. So maybe that does change the dynamic a little bit.
I mean, let's not discount the fact they're doing really well in the Champions League.
They are
in the top 8, and if you
would say, and I don't want to be too harsh, for some reason they've played 3 of their 4 games at home. They've only had 1 away game in their 4, and it was Union St. Gilloise. So they've not, other than Barcelona, they've not had like.
All right. Well, they're travelling to Marseille, who are currently outside the playoff area in the.
True.
And then they've got Leverkusen, which again I think is a pretty good time.
Yeah.
Very winnable game. Then they've got.
They'll go for
I'm not trying to discount them because they've had a really strong start and they've done exactly what they needed to do.
Then they host PSV. I think that's 3 wins in my head right there. And then they've got PSG and what is just basically a free hit. So
they could get top 8, 100%.
They'll end up getting. They'll end up
be an
progressing,
unbelievable achievement.
Yeah.
If you look at this quality of top 8.
But again, though, my point, I think it comes back to the point of let's see how they are then come February. Once that knockout stages comes along, and they've got to keep up that intensity, and they've gone through the December period where you're playing.
You're
playing like
with no drop down into the Europa League. It is very much like, oh well, that was it. European football's over then.
Yeah, season over. Yeah.
Okay, well, Newcastle then. I think we're in agreement that actually maybe it's not as bad as the league table would possibly suggest.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
However, maybe something to come back to in end of December.
Only
January.
10 league goals is pretty bad.
Yeah,
like, that's half of what's.
And how many does Voldemort have of them?
4.
Yeah. So
and Bruno's got 3.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So definitely the wingers. You mentioned Gordon in that as well. Gordon's had a bit of a weird season. It felt like at one moment, he might be back. He might.
He's kind of played better for England.
And then for Newcastle, it's dropped off.
Not the strongest opposition, but
dropped off massively. Okay, then over to Fulham. Henry, I wanted to give you the floor for this one because what's going on?
Mate, I don't know. My colleague keeps telling me we're sleepwalking into relegation. I firmly don't believe it. I really don't believe it. I think we have been. The problem is, I think with the early fixtures this season, we were slightly unlucky. Obviously, we were completely robbed against Chelsea in that. I mean, at one point, we were like 6th, and it was looking really good against Chelsea. Like against Villa, we sort of started strongly. I don't really. Sorry, it's actually quite hard to talk about Fulham, not in like an emotional sense. I just don't really.
But I do feel like with Fulham, it's funny.
Got no goals.
It keeps coming. It kind of always every season. It seems like it's the same thing, isn't it? Where goals you struggle with. Muniz has like a nice little purple patch where he looks really promising, possibly, and
I just don't understand.
Do you think bringing in the bulk of like your attacking signings right at the end of the window is not really a chance to like gel properly?
I said this at the time, like, everyone's going, oh wow, you've won the deadline day because you bought some players. Like, well, no, we've lost the window because we didn't buy him early doors. Never works. Look at Kevin. He's had
a really poor transfer window.
Shockingly bad. Shockingly bad. In a season when we're trying to convince Marco Silva to sign on for a longer campaign, at first I was laughing at it, but I'm almost not surprised that maybe Nottingham Forest is suddenly a bit more of an attractive option because at least you get back, go out and get the business done. It's so strange to me. Like we've taken Jonah Kusiasari on loan, 18-year-old forward from Bayern Munich. Watch his highlights, looks class. By all accounts, we beat Sporting and Anderlecht to get him. So we must have promised some game time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We must have said, currently he's got 1 minute in the Premier League. So the point is, and we're still rolling on with Raul Jimenez and Rodrigo Muniz, whoever turns up, basically, that week. Just switch it up. I don't get it. Like Josh King, I feel sorry for Josh King because, again, he's been robbed of some goals and assists that would have sparked his career to life. He's got an assist. You're smiling over there, so prick. It's just so strange. And now we've had to go back to the kind of tried and trusted Harry Wilson popping up with the odd goal.
Yeah, I love Harry Wilson.
He's actually kind of stepped up a little bit this season. Harry Wilson.
It's odd because we're quite good for a team with no outstanding superstars at the moment. Yeah. Anthony was one of our best players last season. Barely seen him at all this term. Calvin Bassey, I think, has definitely dropped off. There's just almost not enough competition in some of these spaces to cajole the best performances out. Yeah. Like, if Calvin Bassey gets played badly, what's the option? Cuenca or Issa Diop? It's like, well, neither of which are inspiring choices. Kenny Tete, whatever. Fine.
And you had a big battle to keep Tete, didn't you, in the end?
Yeah, was it Everton?
He was almost on his way out.
I think we'll be totally fine. Again, we play with an identity. We do play with a style of football.
But for a season last year where it looked like actually Fulham might be able to take a step forward here and be one of these, we talk about Bournemouth and how well they're doing. We talk about all these teams that have kind of stepped up to become a bit more like a European challenger. And we said like Fulham could be this if they obviously invested a bit of money and we've mentioned a few times how it can you can do that.
It feels more worrying for the long term than the short term, I think, because it's like you said. I think from looking from the outside in, I think you'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, is this Marco Silva's last season at Fulham? I think that's the overarching kind of question.
I think most Fulham fans look at Palace and they look what's happened under Glasner, and there is a real degree of jealousy because he has elevated almost every one of those players. And
Mitrovic, I saw him come out like this weekend or this week, and he was like, Marco Silva should be managing the Champions League. Obviously, he will say that.
I think he's probably right,
to be honest. But like, he was like, Marco Silva should be managing the Champions League. He could be managing Arsenal. He could manage Chelsea, so on and so forth. And Fulham kind of need to count their lucky stars.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think it's crazy.
We play good football, but with the lack of new players coming and doing stuff. Don't get me wrong. I do like Kevin, and I'll die on the hill that he'll be good. There's not really been an evolution in the style of play from last year or personnel within that squad, other than Lukic playing more minutes and Josh King coming in. So I think maybe teams are beginning to figure out Fulham a little bit, but I still think compared to the other guys down there, that will be totally fine.
But what's funny is at the end of last season, you weren't thinking about the bottom part. You were thinking about the top part and how can Fulham go on about this? And it is possibly the investment side. Like I know, they did spend a pretty penny on who's the British Kevin on the last day, but they had a whole summer to try and improve this side and take it to the next level and be challenging. Like the fact that I do agree. I think Wilson's like a fine squad player, but he shouldn't be starting. Like they should be being able to have.
He shouldn't be your talisman, really. I actually really like Harry Wilson. I think he's a good player, but
I think he's shown up with a few really important goals over the last year.
He shouldn't really be your guy.
But for how it felt like this Fulham squad were going to progress, and especially with such a good manager in Silva, it felt like, and even like at the start of last season, when they brought in Emile Smith-Rowe, and it was like, okay, it felt like that could be a way forward for them. Obviously, he started hot, and then it's not necessarily progressed from there.
He's been pretty piss poor since last January.
He has, but it's not necessarily gone, the way I think fans were thinking it would for Fulham.
A lot of our plan is just getting it to Iwobi and hoping that he does something cool at the moment. And it's just there is just a stale. It's just a bit stale in the squad, but again, I'm not worried. I think sadly, we're just going to have to accept this probably isn't the season which we hit the lofty heights we're all expecting. Okay. And then, there is going to be a degree of uncertainty going into. Fulham will always have the benefit of being a London club. They'll always have the benefit of being like, well, you can come manage here. It's a nice place to be. That's the reason Bernd Leno's always, I think, has been too good for us for a number of years. But I think he just likes living in London. Yeah. So. Decent wage. So that's the point. We've always got that working in our favour. But something has to give next summer because
what is going on with Anthony Robinson? Is he injured?
He was injured at the start of the season.
But he's back now because Sessegnon's played basically every game, hasn't he? I've never known him to be so fit.
Sessegnon's kept him out. But he's got 2 goals. He's our joint top scorer.
I really like Ryan Sessegnon.
That's it. Like Robinson, how many assists did he get last year?
We're talking about him
as the best left back in the league. So
very true.
You lose those outlets and slight tweaks are made to the team, and actually, sure enough, things change.
Okay, then from one London club in West London to a London club in North London, both playing white. Tottenham Hotspur.
Arsenal need fixing.
Tottenham Hotspur, they need fixing. It's an interesting one with Spurs because maybe pre the Chelsea game, I wouldn't have actually included Spurs here, but with what I think is maybe the worst performance I've ever seen live.
Wow.
Especially for a home team, we do need to chat about it. I know, obviously, you got the win in the Champions League. Well done. Van der Ven scored a really nice goal. Well done. But there is something there that is a negative. There's a bit of negativity around Spurs. There's the whole. I know it probably has been blown out of proportion about the whole Spence and Van der Ven. That's
a load.
But there is an issue. There is an issue for someone who said about how, we've spoken about before on the podcast about the risking that Thomas Frank said, but essentially was implying that, look, I'm going to try and play an attractive style of football. I want to do good things here. And then to be so stodgy, to be so poor, to have kind of no idea what they're doing going forward, especially in that Chelsea game, What do we make of it then, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to point out is that we've spoken about two teams in this list that are both above Chelsea, and I don't see us talking about Chelsea's.
Yeah, it's true.
Interesting,
actually. Yeah.
Interesting. No, you are right to point out Tottenham's problems. It was good to get that win against Copenhagen. We needed that badly, especially after the weekend, to just go and batter someone at home and be more convincing in the style of play. We'll say Copenhagen are probably one of the worst teams I think I've ever seen come to Tottenham. They were so bad, but at least we played in the right. Yeah, at least we played in the right kind of manner. It was really disappointing to perform like we did in a derby as well, and showed that little fight and kind of invention. This is a Chelsea team, as we saw last night and as we've seen so far this season, that are a little bit naive. They're not the finished product. They are gettable. I thought there were some excellent individual performances from Chelsea on the day that stifled us a little bit, but we didn't do anywhere near enough to harm you, really. And we kind of
that bit in in the 80th minute or so where it goes back to the goalkeeper, like that. And that happened several times. Was actually insane.
Yeah, Carragher did a really good bit on it on Monday Night Football that kind of just highlighted a lot of the issues that we've been speaking about in terms of the lack of central progression, the midfield pivot of Paulinho and Bentancur, who are kind of doing well for the jobs that they're being asked to do. Paulinho has been unbelievable off the ball, but I think in home games you've got to sacrifice a little bit more. I don't think you can afford to maybe carry a player like that who is just not great on the ball. Paulinho 100% has a place in this Tottenham squad, but I do feel like in the next summer window, I feel like that kind of ball progression in midfield is key for us. Things started to change, I thought, on Wednesday, and I think whenever Tottenham have kind of changed, basically the first game of pre-season that we saw under Thomas Frank, we built up in a 3-2-5 with Porro as a right-sided centre-back, Romero and Kevin Danso, and then it was a midfield pivot in front, and then 5 across the front line. That's what we've seen so far this season when Tottenham have played their best football. That's kind of what we went back to against Copenhagen on Wednesday. On Tuesday, sorry. It's actually why I wasn't that bothered about the defeat to Newcastle, because it was individual mistakes from Kinski, but actually I think we saw a lot better in terms of being able to Tottenham move the ball quickly through the thirds, one-touch kind of football. It just felt like a lot more fluid and a lot more balanced. I think that kind of came together on Tuesday night as well, and it's no coincidence that, again, like I said, I will caveat with the poor opposition, but Xavi Simons looks a lot more like himself when he's getting the ball kind of punched through the lines to him quickly. The dynamic of the front line is so much better when Udogie, I think, is in the team. I think Jed Spencer's done well, but Udogie offers so much more from an attacking point of view. He is that natural width holder. His relationship is developing really nicely with Wilson Odobert, who is not the finished article, but I think is developing nicely for a 20-year-old. We've been a little bit too reliant on Mohamed Kudus as well, so it was nice to see us perform from an attacking point of view without him in the side. I think Kyle Mawani is a bit of an upgrade on Richarlison. He had a poor game on Saturday, but we hardly got the ball to him, and I think he's, that's been a problem.
He was the least. I thought he was the least of your worries.
Yeah, for sure. I just think that Frank needs to be a little bit more braver and a little bit more bold and stick to the kind of system and the setup that we saw on Tuesday, because although they were poor, Copenhagen, Tottenham are going to face a team that are going to sit in against them, a little bit like we were talking about Newcastle, for 80% of their home games for the most part. Like, unless Man City kind of come, I know City are going to come at you, actually, to be fair, but unless the really big sides kind of come and you want to be a bit more stodgy and hard to beat in this first season, I get that. But against Wolves, we shouldn't be dropping points to them. Villa, we should have been more brave. I spoke about this on the pod after that game. It was like, there's been a lot of criticism around the transfer of Xavi Simons, but how can you expect him to be effective when he's not getting the ball in the areas? He is in the lowest 15th percentile for passes received in the final third out of any attacking midfielder in Europe.
Is there not anything, though, and this is something he really can't necessarily improve too much on, his physicality, he struggles.
Yeah, a bit. But that's an adjustment to the Prem. I think that's kind of a given a little bit, really. I'm not as worried about that. And I think
there's a few battles between Chelsea, but it was just like something I've not really seen that often. But I think it was almost like comical how
Yeah, I also think in the Chelsea game, it was almost like, I've seen it with Simons a couple of times now, where it's like, because he's been in and out of the team, and I think he's a bit low on confidence, and his role has kind of changed a little bit. He's trying a bit too hard, I think.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing I thought was one of the Chelsea game where, and to be honest, I thought the other reason why Spurs, I thought Chelsea kind of read your book
100%. Yeah,
like they pressed perfectly. They wanted to cause these issues, funnel it through to
Kevin Danso. It was like, and any time we tried to build out down the left hand side, because Spence is not comfortable really on the left from a build up point of view. It's like he comes inside and then Caicedo and James are there to win it back. It's
it was really interesting in the first half. It almost felt like Thomas Frank was like coaching Spence the entire game.
Yeah.
Like I saw him constantly kind of telling him like, come closer or go further forward, whatever it might have been.
Yeah.
The whole 45 minutes of the first game, obviously couldn't do it in the second half when he'd gone to the other side.
I really hope Udogie can stay fit, because I do think, I've bigged up Spence a lot on here, and I think he's full worthy of that praise for what he's done from a defensive point of view. And he's playing out a position as well where he looks a little bit more uncomfortable. Udogie is, I think, in terms of adding balance to the system, he's better. He's much better, I think. Yeah. And it just allows little things to kind of click together. You get kind of better technical players from an attacking point of view in tight spaces combining with each other. It just feels a little bit like the system that we played against Copenhagen and where we have played our best football this season. It just allows things to flow a lot better, and it's been too stodgy outside of that. Like Chelsea read us like a book, like you said, even from set pieces, it's like you've got Chelsea leaving three players up. It's like
you saw it happening live. And like Sanchez, to his credit, has been actually been pretty good this season.
But you can't be, so and that's the thing. It's like when Chelsea are going to deal with that in that way,
you got to adapt.
You can't rely on it, and it's like
definitely. So and they just kept doing the same play over and over again.
I just hope Frank is brave enough to stick with this, and I think against Man United at the weekend, yes, Man United are in a decent bit of form, but I look at that midfield and I look at Bruno and Casemiro, who have been doing okay recently. Yeah. You can get in behind that pivot. You should go with Bentancur, I think, and Sarr again. Like Bentancur looks so much better in this kind of system rather than playing in the double pivot with Paulinho. He's playing balls around the corner first time. Simmons can get in behind that pivot with Alderweireld kind of coming inside. I think he should go unchanged again because that United team is beatable. Like it is really, really beatable. We're the home team.
It's a big game.
It's a really big game. And I think if we can go into the international break, which Thomas Frank did really well against Leeds to do that, to kind of get that monkey off our back. If we can do it again off the back of a good home winning performance, I think all of the criticism that kind of came his way over the last couple of weeks will be put to the side because I like Frank and I think he should be given time 100%, but he needs to kind of speed up the adaptation process a little bit. And unfortunately, he is going to lose that faith and that favour with the fans if this really poor home record continues because it's not good enough. 3 wins in 19 games. It wasn't his issue to start with, but it's his issue to fix. So a good performance against Man United where we really take it to them and beat them, even if we get a draw, but it looks like we're playing the right way. I'd be comfortable with that.
A friend of mine worked out how much he's spent on his, obviously for his season ticket in 2025 for wins. He spent £700 per win.
It's insane.
It's mental.
And you wonder why there was only 49,000 people there against Copenhagen on Tuesday. It's like getting taken a mick out.
You would be raging. Okay, I think it's a very nice synopsis of Spurs. Over to another London club in East London, West Ham. Because now, obviously, they've changed manager. Nuno is there. I think they actually did a really good job at going to a 4-3-3. Potts was amazing against Newcastle in midfield too.
Yeah, great
player. Bench Souček.
West Ham looking player, really.
Yeah, their lineup, I think, against Newcastle was just so much better in terms of for the players that they've got there. A 3-man midfield featuring, obviously, Potts, Fernandes and Paqueta worked really, really well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka was being asked to play just as a natural fullback, not as a wing back, which I think suits him a lot more. Diouf at left back. I know he's a bit more of a wing back, but did a very good job there. Even Bowen and Somerville kind of playing in their traditional positions. I still have question marks over Wilson. Like really, West Ham's striker has been a bit of an issue for the last 3 years now. Really, their best striker in the last decade was actually signed as a right back originally. Like Antonio brought in as a right back, and he's ended up as their best striker in the last decade.
Maybe Wan-Bissaka will complete the evolution.
Yeah, maybe. Now, there's been a bit of questions over West Ham. Obviously, we saw them after the Newcastle game. The fans did the sit-in. Yeah. It was another version of their protest.
I'm so bored of it.
I actually do. I can really, Henry, because I think there's an understanding behind them. Like, they have no sporting setup.
What do you mean?
Sullivan does all the transfer deals. Like, yes, Mark Noble is technically, I think, a technical director, but there's no sporting setup.
They're one of the few.
What do you mean? They have a sporting guy.
I thought it was
Stein. No. Compared to other teams,
he's left now, but
compared to other teams in their sporting kind of department,
they're not running it in a very modern way.
They really aren't. They really, really aren't. Like, it's one of the reasons.
These are the same fans that basically demanded that David Moyes got moved out. Like these are the same fans. These are the same fans
that
that
fan base has done something wrong doesn't mean they're not all the time.
Also, not all of the fans hate the Olympic Stadium. Not all of them hate.
I think most of them.
A lot of them hate. A lot of them do.
Also, with the Moyes thing, I don't think they demanded that he was going. I think they realised they wanted to push on, and look, it's not worked out for them. And also, I don't think they were necessarily wrong.
There's nothing wrong with the club feeling like they want to go to another level
because they've been shown the carrot. I think, haven't they? I think that's why. You don't get me wrong. As a Spurs fan, I hate West Ham, and I'd love to see them get relegated. But I really do sympathise and empathise to an extent with their fans of kind of like being, shown that kind of carrot and being sold this kind of golden dream really by the owners, whose empty words just have amounted to absolutely nothing and have regressed significantly over the last couple of years after that Europa Conference League win. They've spent money, don't get me wrong, but they've also wasted a hell of a lot of money, and that comes back to that poor kind of structure within the club. I do think some of the players they've signed will come good. I think Somerville was showing glimpses. Obviously signed last summer, Somerville, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They've been unlucky with a few of the transfers, maybe in some of the injuries and stuff like that. But I think their fans have every right to kind of do what they're doing, which is, it's the kind of cloud and the noise around the club is maybe a little bit unhelpful for a new manager kind of coming in. But he's got to be patient and understanding with that. And if he actually gets them to start winning at home, because their home form has been absolutely diabolical as well. Talking about Tottenham, I don't think before Newcastle they'd won a home game since February. So that was a massive, massive win for them. And also, what I liked what Nuno did is that Freddie Potts has kind of been knocking on the door a little bit. Had an excellent loan spell at Portsmouth last year.
Yeah, he did.
Was at Wickham, I think, before that.
Player of the season at Wickham.
Player of the season, yeah. He's played 4 games, I think, prior to this season.
He played in every pre-season game and then didn't feature.
Exactly. If you want a little bit of I understand why a new manager maybe coming in straight away wouldn't chuck him in, but if you want to win back a little bit of favour with the fans and buy a bit of time, give an academy kid a go who's been knocking on the door. And he showed you why you can trust him.
It's almost like what they've actually done is square pegs and square holes.
Exactly, because I think again it was Carragher talking about on Monday Night Football said the line about how they are the least athletic team in the Premier League, and I do think Potts coming in terms of the ground that he covers, and again you've got a West Ham academy kid whose dad is sitting on the bench as one of the coaches. It's like he's going to run for every blade of grass, and West Ham need characters. I did question whether this squad would have the kind of stomach for a relegation battle, and I questioned that after they lost to Leeds, where it was just so pitiful, and then the box defending and all those kind of things. But I think if you put someone like that in there, it kind of just gives everyone a little bit of a lift, and it's like if a young player like that is showing those standards, everybody else has got to raise it. So I think it was good from Nuno to do that, and the balance in midfield felt a lot better.
That starting lineup that they've got that they played against Newcastle, looking at, I don't hate it.
It looks a lot better, doesn't it? Straight away.
Back line of Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Todibo, one of Todibbo's best games. I really don't mind that.
It was a £40 million. Exactly. £40 million and a half. He was linked with Barcelona and stuff like that.
As I said, the midfield we've gone through, even the wingers, Somerville, Bowman is really decent, really decent.
Yeah.
Obviously Areola's back in goal now, but I think I can understand why. And look, I don't think it's right to sit here and be like, look, fans can't want more for their team and want to play a better style of football or consistently be in Europe, whatever it might be. Especially with the amount of money West Ham has spent over the years.
Yeah, to be fair, the owners haven't actually invested much of their own money. They haven't. I think when it compares to a lot of the other teams, their investment, the only time they really put their hand in their pockets was during COVID, when they almost had no choice. So I do get that frustration. I think the problem is with West Ham fan protests is that it's so frequent and so and it is kind of like.
But that's what a protest is, though. A protest normally has to be frequent, otherwise that you let them win.
Yeah, but, all right, fine.
And it's not like they're ruining the games, and they're doing quite fair enough protests, sitting for 45 minutes
and also
after the game.
Had the boycott for the Brentford game, but still quite a lot of people turned up to the game because it's quite difficult.
Boycotts are hard, though.
It's very difficult to separate your match day from it's like, well, I want to go to the football.
And you
with my
paid
dad,
for a ticket, and
I empathise with them quite a lot.
You can say this is a really lazy analysis, but I do think they're just the Premier League is so hard, and it's just so nuts. And no one has a divine right to finish in the top 8.
No one has a divine right, but no one, but people can also dream
I'm sorry.
too.
Yeah, you can dream, but I'm sorry, but West Ham, and this is the point, they do spend money on players. It's not as if they don't get any new signings. But then this is their issue,
have they spent, because of their scouting department not being vast, because of their not having a proper sporting board or sporting background set up with technical directors and sporting directors.
Fair enough.
They're wasting that money on just Sullivan's mate who's an agent. That I think is an understandable issue to have. Okay, for the last 5 minutes, let's chat quickly about Everton then.
Not Chelsea?
Not Chelsea. Chelsea not making it, unfortunately, for you guys. There are already some disgruntled fans talking about possibly them moving on from David Moyes.
That's absolutely not true.
Is that true? 14.
Maybe not moving on, but I've seen a few Everton fans that
are
he's starting to lose me a bit.
14th. level with Newcastle. I think if they currently finish
at 14.
Yeah, 14. If they continue at this same pace, they would finish on 46 points, which should just be enough kind of like lower mid-table.
Good season.
All the like underlying stats suggest the same as well. They've lost 3-0 to Spurs, 1-0 to Leeds, 2-1 to Liverpool, and 2-0 to Wolves in the Cup so far this season. But Everton haven't won. Sorry, Everton have actually just won 1 of their last 8 games across all competitions, and even by Moyes' admissions, says that they're struggling to sustain a performance for the whole game. That's been a big issue for them. They've had a really good first half and dropped off massively in the second half, or had a really poor first half and turned up a little bit more in the second half.
That's pretty much what happened against Sunderland. They should have been out. Well, not out of sight, but they created a lot of chance in that first half. And
this also kind of like sums up where they are, because I guess it's just the league table at the moment. They're 5 points off of 6th place, but they're also 5 points off of...
Yeah, it is on a bit of a knife edge, isn't it? Like, I think one of the biggest issues that I've seen Everton fans kind of speaking about, and also it's plainly obvious to everyone to see who watches Everton, is the handling of the striker situation of Beto and Barry, the kind of rotation of those two.
We did sit here though and go in the summer like, I liked Arne Barry.
Yeah,
like I think it was a good signing, like good fee for him.
Yeah, it was exciting.
He's a very exciting striker. And he's not like started his life to the Premier League really well. I mean, they're underperforming their XG by 3.4 this season, which I think is fourth or third worst in the league.
Fourth, sorry, you're right.
Beto is actually the division's highest underperformer in XG.
Shock.
What a surprise.
Apparently Barry should also have one more goal than he does according to XG.
Yeah, well, Monday was a gilt-edged chance, wasn't it? It was a quality cross by Grit. They should be scoring more goals than they are when you look at the quality of that 3 behind the striker.
Yeah. But they are also struggling as well, like their fullbacks, for instance. I know they brought in Asnu, the guy from Bayern Munich, but he's like super, super young. He's not really given a chance. And like Yarmolenko and what's his face?
Mikolenko,
sorry.
Jake O'Brien.
Mikolenko and O'Brien like aren't bombing forward to like help out. And
O'Brien's not a right back.
No, you're right. He's a centre back. But and also, you know, one thing I think has been quite crucial to them that they've been missing out. Branthwaite. Branthwaite allows them to go higher up the pitch. Allows them to. I mean, they actually are pretty good pressers. Like, they do work really hard. But the back line, when it is Keane and Tarkowski,
just get up
is
10 yards.
So deep. It's so deep. And Branthwaite has that recovery pace. He has that ability on the ball with his left foot as well that opens up so many more passing angles for him. Like, I don't even mind, like, the midfield I actually think is pretty good. Like, it's just a Garner Gay still, like, going at it.
Literally Garner Gay.
Garner Gay's 35 years old.
35,
like, you can't expecting...
No, but it's a nice output.
Not you, it's a you plural. And it is James Garner, an elite central defensive midfielder. Like
he's been all right.
His numbers are good. Like,
he's got good energy, isn't he?
Yeah. But we've like sat here and like loved the attacking midfielders and wingers. Like we love like Dewsbury Hall. We love obviously Grealish and Dyche, who's been amazing. So it does feel like they're on the knife edge. It's like if one of the strikers just ends up putting in a couple of these chances, Everton can quickly rise up the table and like be within that possible hot take I had of like a European shout. But they are just on a knife edge as well. And also, like, he doesn't change it very often, does he, Moyes? Like, he takes a while to bring on, like, substitutes. Like, in fact, only one side, Crystal Palace, have made fewer subs this season than Everton.
And it's always the same sub, isn't it? It's always the striker for the striker, isn't it? It's like...
But he's not given, like, Dibbling a chance. Like, that's a weird one. Dibbling came in, was super exciting last season, spent a decent chunk of change on him.
Wow.
And... he just refuses at times to bring him on, or when he does, he waits so late to do it and give him any chance of making an impact.
Yeah,
like how rare has he even started a game this season? Like maybe one.
I think maybe Carabao Cup.
Even Roll. We were talking about Roll as like he's a super exciting player. He's barely featured as well. So there's some weird decisions by Moyes, and I think that's what Everton fans are struggling with.
Yeah, it was the appointment they needed at the time, isn't it? But I do feel like with the ambitions they've got and the actual quality in the squad, I wouldn't sack him now. I definitely wouldn't sack him. But
no. I think just see. Get to December, get to the end of December, see where they're at. I think they're, and hopefully he just includes some of these changes. Get like a feature Dibbling a little bit more. Like I know he's super young, he's going to be inconsistent.
You're saying feature Dibbling though. Where? Like he's not going to take we've literally just said.
But you can move and die
into and die.
But Dewsbury Hall's been good, but you can take Dewsbury Hall off and die into the 10 and put
or drop
Dibbling
Dewsbury
on the
Hall
right.
a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Like there are ways to go about it, but we will see. I
don't think Dibbling's the answer to this team. I think they concede way too many goals, and as we're talking about. West Ham not being athletic enough. You said it yourselves. Keane, Tarkowski, and Jake O'Brien is not a dynamic.
No, I would agree.
I think fullback is an area that Everton fans have said for a while they really need to upgrade.
They're screaming for Branthwaite to come back. They really, really are in some shape or form. And hopefully it's not too. Obviously, he had that surgery. Hopefully it's not too long away, and we'll see him back in that side. But there we have it, lads. That is how to fix some of your failing teams. Henry Hill, if the lovely people at home want to check you out, where can they go?
Oh, goodness gracious. Just follow me on Twitter or Instagram. I don't know. No one ever seems to. Please.
Please.
Well, there you have it, lads. Ben, where can the lovely people at home check you out?
TikTok, YouTube, got a couple of podcasts. FC Bottle Job, Darren and doing, go and check them out. And well, I'm sure we'll talk about Chelsea next week.
I liked one of your reels this week, actually.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Just chucked you a like.
It's really nice.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Just dropping you a like, mate.
Amazing. Subscribe to, of course, Nothing But Football. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.